people going behind you.
Hi, everybody. This is a Bitcoin morning brief. Yes, there will be random people going behind me and Thor joining us today. We have the gentleman. Jimmy is on. Tone is in a sketch warehouse or something. But how's it going? Are you both in London right now?
I'm not.
I'm already in London.
Austin, but I think Tone is in London.
Jimmy, where are you?
Yeah,
I'm in Austin. We need to work on this timing, guys. Like, something's a little off today. But Tone, why don't you tell us where you are?
yeah, we're definitely a little off today. But yeah, I'm in London. I just got here. My flight from Paris was delayed like 3 hours. It's insane. It's like a 1 hour flight from Paris to London, and the flight's delayed like 3.5 hours. So I just got to my Airbnb. It's definitely not what I expected, and like the internet barely works. I have no idea how to. Like, I'm literally tethering from my international. God knows how much I'm paying on the up bandwidth, but yeah. So I'll be at a hotel in a couple of days when the conference starts. But times are tough with the bear market and Bitcoin, so I'm like in the smallest possible studio. It's a little sketchy.
The shutters look sketchy. Sorry, Jimmy. All right, we will be seamless. How are you doing, Jimmy?
I'm good. I was just gonna comment that Tone looks like he's in the ghetto, like he's like a drug dealer or something like that right now. Like the mood and everything else of that dark place. Yeah, just it's kind of scary, Tone. I'm expecting like a serial killer to come up behind you or something.
Jeez.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, isn't this where Jack the Ripper kind of made his name?
Maybe it's gonna be a Sweeney Todd situation when you get your hair done again.
Yeah.
If you know that reference. All right, let's get going, guys. We have some interesting stories. Okay, so Bitfury and Commons Foundation to launch Bitcoin operations in Paraguay. This is going to be interesting. I am interested in what you guys are going to say, but pretty much what this press release is that, so this is a South Korean R&D company, the Commons Foundation, and they're going to be jointly launching a network of Bitcoin mining operations, as it says, in Paraguay. And so it's a series of mining centers that will be set up using its BlockBox AC Bitcoin mining devices powered by hydroelectric power plants, is my understanding. Jimmy, what were your thoughts on what Bitfury and also their partnership are up to in Paraguay?
Yeah, this is exactly the sort of thing that we can expect going forward. You have a lot of hydroelectric power in Paraguay, and it's not really that easily transmittable to put electrical lines and things like that to where it can actually get used from where the actual energy is. That actually takes a lot of capital costs to put in the electricity lines, and you lose a lot of the electricity on its way to the place. So this is actually a really good way to monetize energy is by mining Bitcoin. So to me, this is sort of like a new model of energy production where you can have companies like Bitfury go in there and subsidize a lot of the hydroelectric building by having them consume a lot of that energy. Because oftentimes what happens with stuff like hydro and solar is that you produce a certain amount of energy, but you can't use a lot of it. You can't transmit it. It's not economical to transmit it to the population centers. These places tend to be out in like the boonies or whatever, and it's very distant from civilization. So by having these mobile things, I think these are BlockBox AC mobile data centers. By being able to put them very close to the energy source, it's a win-win for everybody. It's a win for Bitfury because they're going to be able to make money off of the very cheap electricity, and it's a win for the hydroelectric producer because this is energy that otherwise would go unused, that wouldn't be doing anything. So it's a really good model, and I expect more of this to happen with sort of like the green energy technologies, because oftentimes they are very distant. And what Bitcoin does is it reduces the distance that, I mean, it basically eliminates the distance because you can monetize the energy right away.
Thanks, Jimmy. Tone, do you think this is a good idea as well?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's good for Bitfury, obviously, but yeah, no, I mean, that energy needs to be used up. I mean, it's just sitting there doing nothing, so you might as well mine Bitcoin with it. I think it's good. I mean, Paraguay is not exactly the safest country in the world, so Bitfury, please be careful, guys. Yeah, no, I mean, it's always good, right? I mean, the more decentralized Bitcoin mining is around the world, and Paraguay and Uruguay are countries where lots of mining takes place. Venezuela, same way. And it is good. Now, I mean, like, I got so tired of explaining to people years ago that China does not control the mining of Bitcoin. And thank God all of that speculation stopped from, well, Nouriel Roubini still uses 2015 data for his arguments, but everybody else kind of went away.
Thanks, Tone. All right, let's figure out what's up with Kraken. So Kraken's is their official blog release. They acquired Crypto Facilities, so that's a crypto derivatives trading platform, says right here, an index provider. So what the acquisition means is that Kraken, is going to be the first crypto exchange, my understanding, to offer both spot and futures tradings in Bitcoin, but also, right, Ethereum, Ripple. And what was interesting to me, to start it off, if that's okay, is that they declined to share the specific prices of the deal, even though they're saying it's a 9-figure deal. They went about it kind of very differently. They didn't go to institutional investors. They the CEO, Jesse Powell, was saying that they didn't need to even register the round with the SEC because they only approached accredited investors and others that were covered by an exemption. And they were like emailing people for quite a few months about who would be interested about this. But yeah, I guess just to say from an integration perspective, they integrate the back-end operations of crypto facilities. And so again, they're going to immediately be able to, users are going to be able to trade on a single platform. Futures trading, though, are not going to be available for US users, which also was interesting to me. Okay, big intro. Sorry about that. Tone, what's your thought about this acquisition?
I mean, Kraken is doing pretty well. They have a pretty big operation. They have a lot of employees, and they want to branch out. I guess they decided this would be better than building a derivatives platform from scratch within their system. Everyone kind of has to compete with BitMax at this point. But BitMax is a non-KYC exchange, and Kraken is more on the KYC side. So they're not going to be direct competitors, but Kraken is preparing, to be there when BitMax eventually either is forced to go KYC or BitMax, gets shut down the way of one broker, because I think it is inevitable. And I think it's a good play. I think it's good to be prepared for what happens, since BitMax is the king of volume. If there's a big void in that derivative space, then they want to be well positioned. So I think it's a good play.
Thanks, Tone. And Jimmy, this is another acquisition story. Do you agree with Tone? You think that this is a good play?
Well, so my take on this is that first, 9 figures, that's like 100 million, but below $1 billion, something like that, I guess. I'm a little bit like concerned.
Yeah, okay.
Still.
I'm sorry, back in here. I'm a little tired. Like, for some reason, when you said 9 figures, I was thinking 7. I was thinking they paid somewhere between 1 and 9 million for it, not between 100 million and $1 billion. So maybe I should take that back.
Yeah, I like that. That to me tells me that this bear market is nowhere near bottom. I mean, you expect sort of like these sort of acquisitions to happen during a bear market, but like the prices on this are just kind of insane. But then again, it might be sort of like money manipulation. It might be like an all stock deal or something like that, with Kraken like being valued at some insane many billions of dollars or something like that, and they just issue, they dilute their shares by, I don't know, 2% or something, and buy some player like this. But yeah, I mean, the prices on this are just kind of insane, which tells me that, we're not near bottom yet, because you usually see the acquisitions in the much more humble regions of prices when you get towards the bottom, because they just don't have anyone to sell to. And I imagine that, I don't know too much about crypto facilities, but there are futures exchange. I don't know how big that market is. I mean, there's a lot of other futures markets, and not sure why you trade futures if you have the well, I guess you can get leverage off of it or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it seems like this story points to a bigger reality, which is that we're not near bottom yet.
Thanks, Jimmy. And yeah, I was doing a little research on Crunchbase, and even crypto facilities. They'd only just raised kind of a seed round of 1.5 million, quite a big jump, I would say, of what they're getting acquired for. And Kraken's not disclosing anything. They didn't disclose anything on Crunchbase, but also with the SEC, it's kind of interesting. Tone, it seemed like you wanted one last follow-up when Jimmy was talking. Or just that it was a massive figure, and then we can go to another crypto exchange.
Yeah, no, it just seems, I mean, I've never really heard of crypto facilities. Like, I'm not familiar with them. So I don't really understand why they require such a big price tag, but like, maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Oh, yeah, Jimmy, just one last follow-up, thoughts?
Yeah, I find this hilarious because Jesse Powell was basically begging anyone and everyone to invest in Kraken about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's gone to the point where he's just able to grab a bunch of like private investors and stuff like that. How long we've come, and it's also like a nice way to compare the bear markets, because during the last bear market, like, they literally had like almost no money, and they needed new investors in order to fund their operations, like almost on a day-to-day, like make payroll kind of basis. I think that's what we're looking for in terms of a bear market signal, rather than like 9-digit acquisition kind of thing that we're seeing with this acquisition.
Thanks, Jimmy. Tone, one last follow-up. Any thoughts on maybe that this acquisition has something to do with that crypto facilities is nicely registered? My understanding with authorities in London and in the UK, versus maybe some worries, and also that it's not registered in the SEC, right? They skirted these rules, maybe just some worries about maybe statements or regulations coming down the pipeline here in the States.
Yeah, no, I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, this is one of the reasons why Poloniex sold itself to Circle, and what do you call it? I think Bitstamp sold itself to some gaming company. I mean, all of these exchanges, they're not going to be able to stay, KYC free. They're centralized. They could be, the KYC can be enforced on every single one of them. We don't have any decentralized exchanges. And the ones that we do have, no one's using them, because people want others to be held accountable for holding on to their Bitcoin, which we're going to get to in this next story.
Very true. And we have the next story, which is QuadrigaCX. I will jump right to you, Jimmy. Seems like a lot of sketchiness just happened here, and they did not hold their private keys, which we always recommend on this show. What happened? What's your thoughts?
All right. So first of all, CEO Gerald Cotton was in India on December 9th, and apparently he was the only one that had the private keys to all of the customer funds in cold storage. He apparently died in India on December 9th due to complications from Crohn's disease. And because he was the only one that had the private keys, they have no idea where the private keys to all their customer funds are. This apparently is around 20,000 Bitcoins, which is a significant amount of money. And their customers can't get it. So a lot of really weird and interesting things about this story. First of all, the guy died in India, which is interesting. If you have any sort of medical problems, why would you be traveling there of all places? Second, India is, let's just say, known to have some people that are very easily bribable. So for instance, you can get a death certificate fairly easily without too much trouble. There are other weird things about this this particular death, in that the guy actually like wrote out a will and like put his affairs in order like 2 weeks before traveling to India. Besides that, he also died of complications from Crohn's disease. Now, Crohn's disease is an autoimmune disorder, and it's, you know, it's basically your immune system acting up probably more than it should. There aren't that many ways in which you die from complications of that per se. It's usually sort of like a debilitating disease for sure, but it's not necessarily something that you die because of. And it's just a lot of really weird and sketchy things that happened at this thing. I'm not saying that he's not dead or that he's you know, trying to like fake his own death so he can run away with 20,000 Bitcoins or something like that. But there's enough weirdness around this story that, like, the fact that this company is filing for bankruptcy, I guess in Canada, they call it like creditor protection or whatever it is. I think in the US it's called bankruptcy protection. But yeah, I mean, it's just like a really weird and sketchy story. And I'm just kind of, you know, I mean, you should expect things like this to happen when you keep your money on an exchange. Is not your keys, not your Bitcoin. That's really the message here.
True. 190 million. You're right. I was looking a little bit more. He was only 30 years old, and they said that potentially some of the funds were also kept on a hot wallet. The widow has access to the computer, and that actually they were saying, or at least Gizmodo, who knows if the reporters are good or not, said that it looked as if some of the funds in question were moved. But yeah, sketch, Tone, thoughts for sure. We were even asked this on the show with Tyler, and you skirted it a little and then went full rant a little bit. So please go full rant.
Yeah, I did a big rant on this. Well, when we did a show yesterday, was it?
Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah. I did a rant on this yesterday. This is the crypto space. This is why I don't like to have any money on an exchange. This is why whenever I put money on an exchange, I immediately like try to remove it. I only put this is why I put this is why I used to put my entire BitMEX account on a single trade, because then my liquidation is my exit. And then if I need to do another trade, I'll put more money in. And this is going to keep happening until, you know, there's some kind of regulation and people are held accountable. So Jimmy, so what I said the other day, I think that the investors, like all the C-level managers, should be held accountable. The board members should be held accountable, because you need to know who your CEO is. This shouldn't happen, right? So if the CTO could be held liable and potentially go to prison if the CEO dies with the private keys, the CTO is going to actually, you know, be a little careful about taking that job. And he's going to do his job in making sure that this can't happen. Same thing with the board members. I think that's where regulation is going to go to eventually, because this is the same problem. I mean, we can look at GBTC. We can look at potentially an ETF in the future that's going to be holding Bitcoin in reserve. I mean, people need to be held accountable for something like this. Otherwise, it's going to be Mt. Gox all over again. I mean, I really like kind of what HODL is trying to do with their exchange, in that they're not the custodian of any of the funds. They're just the third party for a multi-sig. So the user has a key, the one trader has a key, the second trader has a key, and HODL has a key. So no one is actually able to run away with the funds. These things are totally doable, but nobody really wants to do it. So this is a problem. Like, I have no idea if this was an exit scam. I have no idea if he legitimately died and the money's lost. And it doesn't really matter because we've warned people to be very, very careful and only trade with the Bitcoin you're willing to lose. And I will have to say one thing, though. The really unfortunate part is I know one of my consulting clients was using this exchange. And because they listened to us and my channel and the Hyperwave channel, this person didn't have any Bitcoin. They were sitting in all cash. And now that cash is kind of frozen, and they're probably going to do something like Bitfinex did, where all of the people that didn't have the Bitcoin, the people that were waiting to buy Bitcoin on a cheap and held the cash at the exchange, that cash will now be, socialized and used to make some of the losses whole of the Bitcoin holders, which is, I don't know if that's good. I don't think that's right.
Well, I mean, it's not your dollars, not your. I mean, if you don't have cash, it's not really your dollars either. You're lending it to the exchange or your bank or whatever, because they can kind of seize it, right? Like that's the whole idea behind Bitcoin. It's a bearer instrument, unlike pretty much every other form of money out there. So it's I think socializing the loss is actually kind of a reasonable move, and probably the fairest. And I'm guessing the Nova Scotia Supreme Court will rule that way anyway. So
Yeah, that it is a big deal. So what's interesting to me is that a lot of users were saying, or customers, that back in even October of last year, they were able to withdraw their funds. So it surprises me that if like in a good amount were coming out with that statement that they could not get their funds even like $15,000, and yet the firm wouldn't even disclose some sort of warning or whatever. So definitely they would have been having issues for a while. Tone, I'm gonna get you in trouble a little bit. You went with an even more anti-libertarian rant last night. Do you want to say just your last piece, get Jimmy riled up a little bit, and then we'll go to Miniscript?
Well, yeah. I mean, like, I get a lot of shit from the libertarians and the anarchists that we don't need any regulation. So then don't complain when this happens. Like, well, I don't know what you want me to say. Like, I don't know what they want me to say. Like, I always get a lot of shit for wanting regulation.
Well, I mean, it's fraud. So I mean, like you should still prosecute fraud. But stuff like this happens. Well, you're going to deter the behavior by punishing the people that are involved.
Well, Jimmy, who do you prosecute in this case?
Well, I mean, if this guy exit scam, then you go and prosecute the exit scammer. Otherwise, based on the terms of service, if you lent them the money and they can't make good on their loan, then sorry, that's just
no. But what I'm saying is, I mean, like, again, this is where regulation is needed, right? Because if he legitimately died, or B, he legitimately disappeared, and you can't find him, who do you prosecute?
I mean, there are people that get away with things all the time, but I mean, that's part and parcel of any sort of fraud prosecution. Is that it's possible perpetuating the fraud might get away. But I mean, do you like prosecute like a low-level employee that like worked there?
Well, I personally want to prosecute all the high-level employees. If you have a C-level in your name, CTO, CIO, CMO, it doesn't matter. If you have a C-level in your name, I think you should be prosecuted. If you are a board member of this company, I think you should be prosecuted, because you're dealing with Bitcoin and you're dealing with these situations. So before you become an advisor, hell, advisors maybe should be prosecuted, right? So before you become an advisor of one of these things, before you become a board member of one of these things, before you become a C-level manager of one of these things, right? You need to know, you need to make sure that this is a legitimate company so that the users don't get scammed. Now, I think that there should be very serious regulation on this beforehand, not the users of the exchange. I don't believe that the users of this exchange should be regulated. I mean, I would love for the users not to even have a KYC, but the people running the exchange, I think they should have a probe up, before they can open one of these companies up.
I don't think that's a very good way to go about it. That's just going to make it so that like the risk of opening an exchange gets so high, and it's going to make the prices worse for everybody because you have all these compliance requirements with regard to, okay, well, if I'm going to be CEO, I'm going to need to get paid that much more because there's a risk premium if the CEO happens to run away with the money. So I don't think that's a very good free market way to solve that problem. I mean, like, yeah, it sucks if your money's lost, but that's kind of your fault for like putting it into a sketchy exchange. And if you didn't do your research before you put money in the
Jimmy,
exchange, that's kind of your fault.
that's not. Wait, that's not fair. How do you know that this was a sketchy exchange?
Well, I mean, the guy, I mean, most exchanges, if they're asking for your Bitcoin and then like you didn't research into how they did their cold storage, or if they didn't publish anything about how they did their cold storage, then yeah, I mean, you would have known right away. If they didn't publish anything about their cold storage, then you should be like, okay, well then I'm not going to put my money there because it's not safe. If they're using some service like BitGo where there are sort of like recovery facilities and stuff like that, then maybe you can, and like maybe you'd have more assurance that they're doing it in like a proper manner. But I mean, like this is like you as a consumer, a customer have to like do some basic research about like exchanges and whether or not they're good and whether their cold storage practices are good or not. And I mean, like to just like sort of like prosecute people because they happen to be near the person that perpetuated the fraud, I don't think is right. I mean, like if somebody wanted to, prosecute like an advisor because they, charge them $10,000 to like do some promotion on Twitter or something like that. That I mean, like why should they be liable for something the CEO did? I mean, like each individual is their own, and the person that should get prosecuted is the person that was responsible, and the person that's responsible clearly in this case, whether or not it's an exit scam or he really died with the private key, is the CEO. And that's the person. And yeah, I mean, maybe you can take whatever estate that he has to pay back the people, and that I'm totally fine with that, instead of it like going to whatever. Like I said, he like settled his will like 2 weeks before. But if the guy was just very negligent in his affairs, then you should be able to take that will money and distribute it to the people that were wronged. But I don't think you should be able to, like, just because you had a CIO title, be prosecuted for that reason. And I mean, like adding more regulation is not the answer. That just increases the price of everything else.
Yeah, Don?
I was gonna say one last comment. Like, by the way, when Bernie Madoff went down, the developers also went to prison. Like the CTO and I mean, they didn't go to prison for 2 life sentences. They were in the same camp as Charlie Shrem, but several developers and programmers and a bunch of other people went down as well from the fund.
Yeah, I think I just find this story actually very interesting, again, because it's going to such high levels in Canada. To your guys' point, it's absolutely fraud. Well, actually, Madoff is a funny example that you use. He even, I think, had like a chair on the NASDAQ for a little bit. Like, I mean, just he disguised so many different things with his own legitimacy. But obviously, I mean, we talk all the time on this show, not your keys, not your coins. But so I hope people are still listening, everybody, please, please, please. But yeah, just to fraud, I think like actually, it's, well, for sure it's corporate fraud, which is right, disguising or misrepresenting a service that your company's developing, hiding its flaws. But also, right, like if you don't have finances to correct the problem or reveal the issue, then this is just beyond fraud. So we will find out how this plays out, but I actually think it will have ramifications. And moreover, just to say, like talking with Trace, for the first time, I hadn't met Trace before at Unconfiscatable. I think proof of keys is going to be really interesting 2020. But I will stop there. Okay, Jimmy, Miniscript, what's going on? Please decipher.
Well, Yeah, so this is a presentation from Peter Woolley at the Stanford Blockchain Conference, and he gave a talk on sort of a subset of Bitcoin script. Really, it's more about this policy language that he came up with as a way to reduce malleability, number one, but be expressible in a reasonable way. And basically, there's a new language he came up with that compiles to a subset of script. Script is the smart contract language in Bitcoin, and you know it's a very clever way to reduce malleability and have a consistent set of policies that you can implement by using this. And there, if you scroll down, there's actually like a URL that you can click on. Which has the entire demo. You can express some sort of yeah, right there. If you click on that, it's a demo, and this is the policy language that he came up with, and basically you can express sort of the policy that you want with respect to the smart contract in a pretty reasonable way. So right here it says and PKC or PKC. A or PKC time 1000. So what that's saying is you need either a private key C to sign this after 1000 units of time. I don't know exactly what the units of time are, have passed, or private key C to, I guess it should be B or something like that, or another private key to sign in addition to another private key signing. And you know, this sort of like policy is very common in exchanges. This is probably what QuadrigaCX should have used. You know, some sort of like multi-sig, or I mean, this isn't exactly multi-sig. It's a very specific policy. You need one of these people to always sign. You need some amount of time for of this to go through and stuff like that. And if you click compile there, Leah, right up, yeah, if you click that, that will get you the exact script that you need. So it compiles the script. This is what you can plug into your Bitcoin transaction. And then, or you can make that your redeem script for pay to script hash or pay to witness script hash or something like that. And then you can pay out to it and say, okay, well, that's the policy in order to unlock that Bitcoin. And it's a very clever way. It's a very useful way to make script a lot easier, and it's only a subset of scripts, so it's very easily analyzable, it's provable. So a lot of really great things, very clever thing that Peter Woolley came up with, and it's a way to use Bitcoin in a way that's a lot easier to understand, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Jimmy. Tone, follow-up thoughts on this?
No, I'll let Jimmy handle the tech side. Also, like, I don't know, I'm a little tired, so it's I'll need a little bit of time to like process all that. The Super Bowl ended at like 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning for me in Paris. I really enjoyed the game. It was a really good defensive game.
No.
Really? Because I thought it was like the most boring thing ever. I stopped watching after halftime.
It was the worst, and the halftime show was terrible.
Yeah, my kids were looking forward to like a SpongeBob thing, but they had like one scene, and yeah, it was kind of sad.
3-3 the whole game for the most part. It was the most boring, lame call. Oh my god!
I was also working. I was also working during the game. I was gonna go find a bar, but then I just ended up staying in and watching the game. It was like my last night in Paris, so I just.
So you spent the last night in Paris watching the Super Bowl from your hotel room instead of doing something more Parisian.
I bet Parisians are real happy with this statement.
It was a Sunday night. No one in Paris cares about the Super Bowl. Like it wasn't gonna be as fun as you think.
Exactly. And you know, do as the French do when you're in France. No, I mean, like I mean, yeah, like they have things in Paris. I can't believe you just like stayed in your hotel room and did like the most American thing ever: work and watch the Super Bowl.
Yeah. No, but hey, but speaking of work, you guys are gonna find out what that work was. I keep dropping hints. So in about a week, another conference is going to be announced. I'm working on organizing this conference with Adam Back, and it's going to be a Bitcoin developer focused event in Europe. So watch out for that. And we got some awesome speakers lined up in the world of Bitcoin development. So website launches in about a week. So I have nothing to share yet, but just gonna keep dropping little hints every episode. Maybe I'll drop one or two names next time.
Jimmy, what's up with the weather?
It's 2 months away, so it's not like it's far away. All right, let's do the weather report.
We are excited about some sort of more developer events. So, and if it's Bitcoin focused, more of those conferences are needed in this space, and instead of ICO things. So, good for that. It looks like, the mempool keeps clearing every once in a while. I mean, more frequently than not. I think it's about 50-50 whether or not the mempool clears at any 10-minute interval. It looks like there's a big spike there. It usually happens around the morning. There are exchanges that do their payouts once a day, so that makes sense. Right now, if you want to get your transaction in, you're going to have to pay 15-ish Satoshi per byte if you want guarantees to get in there. But if you're willing to wait an hour, I think 1 or 2 Satoshi will probably get in. Well, maybe not 1 or 2. 3 or 4 will probably get in the next hour. If you're willing to wait more like 4 or 5 hours, I'm sure 1 Satoshi is fine. I've certainly done that for a lot of my transactions, and they seem to be going through just fine. But yeah, that's it about that's it for the weather report. You want to shill some stuff, Tone?
I'll let Leah do it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, the London carnivory dinner, and then I will be able to stop shilling there. But Jimmy, you are coming to the conference in London this weekend, right? I know I screwed it up at the beginning, but what's going on here?
Yeah, I am coming to the conference. I'll get there, I think, Thursday morning, because I have to take like a red eye, and it gets complicated. But we are hosting a carnivory dinner. We have to change venues. It's no longer a Brazilian barbecue. It's going to be a really nice steak dinner. I think it's like a 400-gram steak or something like that. We're also going to have some prizes and games, and we're also, it's going to be a fun networking event, Q&A from me and Tone. If you're coming to this conference, it's going to be at the end of the first night of the conference. Be a lot of fun. So if you want to meet me and Tone and hang out and ask some questions and talk about all sorts of things, including carnivory, Bitcoin, or whatever, come on out.
Thanks, Jimmy. And I wasn't able to pull up a link, but you want to talk about your book and where everything's at?
Yeah, so it kind of stinks, but my book got raised in price. It was at $1.60, but now it is $70 on Amazon. But they changed the cover around just a little bit. There is still the honey badger on the front, but it's looking really good. It's color on the inside, and that's the explanation for the additional price of the book and things like that. But it's I've had it technically reviewed by at least a couple of core developers. A lot of people have looked at the diagrams and tried to make sense of it and make sure that I get all the errata in there to be fixed. A lot of my students have, helped me fix some of the, language around certain things that are a little bit more complicated. Lots of really good stuff. But yeah, it should be coming out in early to mid-March. It's, it needs to go to the printers pretty soon. I'll probably get like a, quality control 2 review deck at some point, and then I'll have to review it and send it back and all that stuff. So looking forward to that. Please go ahead and register for that, or pre-order it on Amazon. I also have my seminar coming to New York right around Consensus. That's in May. That's going to be the next one after the seminar in London that's happening next weekend. Is it this weekend? Yeah, I guess it's this coming weekend. So wow, it's kind of crazy. But yeah, it's one of the very few where I'm holding it over the weekend. I usually do it during the week, so that'll be interesting. But yeah, looking forward to London. You know, I do love the Brits, and you know, Premier League is something I do follow, just like Leah does. I'm excited about Tottenham's chances, given you know, how close they are. I will be paying attention to the Liverpool game later today.
EPL. And I'm going to be a big fangirl for a second. The videos were released from Unconfiscatable. My favorite panel, sorry everybody else, was yours, Jimmy, with Giacomo. It was so good. So everybody should check that out. And yes, Jimmy kicked out Doug Pope, putting that was epic. Really quickly, can you say that hand? Because that was just epic.
Yeah, I had ace jack. It was folded around to me in the cutoff, and I raised it to 3 times the big blind. Doug was in the small blind. He went all in. I think it was like maybe double the size of the pot or something like that. And I was like, well, ace jack's pretty good, and you know, it's a coin flip against most smaller pairs. I might be dominated. I decided to call. He had ace king. And somehow I sucked out because there were 4 hearts on the board and I had the ace of hearts. So yeah, I mean, it's not the greatest poker story because, you know, I sucked out on a Poker Pro, obviously someone that's way better than me at this stuff, but hey, at least I have a story. So that's it.
Epic. Well, I'm in jail. Tone's a serial killer. Do you want to stick around though?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of curious about the price, at least for the next 5 minutes or so.
Good call.
Yeah, Jimmy,
all right.
I had a crazier hand that allowed me to stay in the game and allowed me to make the final table. I gotta ask Doug Polk what the odds were of me winning that hand. I think they were less than 5%.
What was your hand?
So check this out. So it was the triple all-in. I was the smallest of the 3 all-ins pre-flop. So I had a chance to straight up triple up. And then when the cards got opened, it was one of the guys had pocket aces. That's what I was going up against. One guy had pocket aces, and I opened my hand, and I'm like, all right, at least I can beat him with a flush because I had a jack king of hearts. And I'm like, all right, I have a jack king of hearts against pocket aces, but I have 2 hearts. And then the third guy opens up his pocket hand, and he's got like ace 10 of hearts. So the same suit as me with an ace. I'm sitting there with like a king and a jack of hearts. I'm like, holy shit, there's no way I can win this hand. And I ended up getting like 2 pairs, a king and a jack. Oh, so, yeah. So it was.
So I'm putting it into the poker odds calculator. Why don't you do price? I will tell you what the odds were.
By the way, on that, Tone.
Yeah.
Well, just to say on the website for that hand, there's this great picture that Daisy got where you're like raising your hands and just like this smile, like a Cheshire cat, like grin. It's really good.
Oh no, that might have been a different all-in where I was also like had like a 10% chance of winning. Like I did get locked out. I mean, they weren't bad all-ins at the time. They were just up against monsters, and I ended up winning them both. I got to go through that video and find all of my all-ins because I kept saying for the camera to come over, so it is on video.
All right, what's up with DA?
Surprisingly, Tone, you had an 11% equity, so that's actually not as bad as you would think. It's because the ace 10, I think, knocks out some of the ace hands, which would like have you drawing dead. But the flush actually doesn't matter as much.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
One time, Jimmy, we're going to have you explain the game theory behind poker too, beyond just the crazy grid that I can't memorize.
Well, you should watch Doug Polk's videos. He's actually really good at explaining that stuff.
Probably true. Tone.
All right, guys. Hey, so tonebase.com. I am also doing a workshop in London this weekend. We added 3 more seats, and this is it. The last 3 seats available here in London on February 9th. After that, I am off to Bangkok, and then I'll be doing a workshop in Vienna. There's a chance I'll do something in between these, but like I'm still working on my schedule. So right here is the link to Unconfiscatable. All the pictures will be posted here next week. And then this conference will be replaced by the conference that's coming up in Europe. More little hints on that every video until the website launches. If you guys are curious, I just added a calendar, and if you go to the monthly view, that's where you can. It's going to look a little bit better, but if you do the drop down, you can see advancing Bitcoin. Click on this link. That's where Jimmy and I will be speaking this Thursday and Friday. Use discount code TONE for a little bit of a discount for your registrations. So anytime you see a dot, there is something going on there. This is the European Blockchain Investment Congress. This is the conference in Vienna, and so on. Anyway, you guys get the point. If you want to support this page, please check out the affiliate link. I promise I will add Jimmy's book here right next to Saifedean's book the moment I get a free minute to create an affiliate code for it. Or maybe I'll put Jimmy's in there because he should be getting the royalty on that. But anyway, let's go to the price. Jimmy, here's a cool thing, right? Are you gonna come back to the cruise, by the way? Oh, you're muted. Jimmy, you're muted. Can't hear you.
I haven't been asked, and I'm not really sure I want to, but I mean, I consider it maybe if they asked again, I guess.
Yeah, but here's the neat part. I think we need to do that next time. If you go to buy tickets, and also please use the referral link, guys, in my in my affiliate code if you're gonna sign up. They raise the price every second. But it's rising by 1/100th of a penny of a euro. You're muted again, Jimmy. You're muted. I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. That's 1/10,000th of a euro. So
euro, right. Well, it's 1/100th of a penny of a euro.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what's pens in the world. So I think so. It's predictable, right? You know that on March 1st the price will be this, but it's rising. Like every second.
It's funny. I like how they put VIP dinner with speakers again. Yeah.
All right, let's do the price before people kill me. Oh, sorry. All these charts will need to load. And I'm dealing with bad internet here. Okay, so here's the monthly chart. The monthly chart is just above $3,400. I talked about the monthly chart yesterday. It does not look good. Your last month had a brand new low close. That is a bearish sign for the monthly chart. I am still being slightly optimistic, thinking that the price can bounce around between the 50-month moving average and the 7-month moving average until they cross, which means we could linger into a 9 in that $3,500 range. So let's see if that actually happens. This is the weekly chart. The weekly chart is probably my most important chart. We just crossed into a brand new week. And the weekly chart has been bearish for a few weeks now, with a red 2 going below a red 1. A red 3 has gone below a red 2. We are still holding the 200-week moving average, but I don't think we're going to hold it for very long. And the weekly chart does look like it wants to break down. And when it does, your last hope is that $2,900 area, like that $2,980, to bounce off of it, come back to the moving average at around current prices, and then it's going to take another leg down. So the weekly chart is looking very, very bearish to me. The monthly will go neutral and still be within the confines of the monthly chart. Here's the daily chart. The good news about the daily is the CMF. We have not had a positive CMF since a while ago. And even though the last time we had a positive CMF, the price did not rise. The price mostly just stayed flat, which is, again, better than it dropping real hard. I don't see anything else on the daily chart to cling to other than the CMF. The daily chart looks pretty bearish. I said yesterday that this candle looked bad, and if the current candle goes below yesterday's candle, that is a shorting opportunity. The current day has not yet gone below yesterday, so therefore you don't have a short on the table. So probably tomorrow, when we go lower than today's price, there will be a short on the table, looking for a 9 on the setup phase, and like the daily chart is looking slightly bearish, but without a straight up short call like the weekly did a few weeks ago. The 12-hour chart is probably on a short call. Why isn't it updating? No, the 12-hour chart is also not on a short call either. You had a red 1, red 2 did not go below red 1, and red 3 kind of opened and went straight up. So maybe it did right at the edge there, but the 12-hour chart will probably go into the red on the next candle. But then the next one would have to trade below the current one. So the 12-hour chart is still holding steady, but since I have this blue line on the daily chart, I don't really need it on a 12-hour chart. All I gotta do is lower it to here, and actually I'm gonna put it right there. No, I was gonna put it right at the wick. Man, hold on. I'll put it here. If we go below that line, it's in trouble, and you can see how it can't cross the moving average. So I think price will accelerate to the downside once you go below this line, which currently sits at 33.85. So all you got to do is go below yesterday's low. This probably explains the bullishness. We had a 9 on the 4-hour chart. I was wondering why that 12-hour had a little bit of an upswing, and that makes sense to me now because the 12-hour did give you a 9 buy basically about 4 hours ago, about 6 hours ago. There was a 9 buy. I'm looking for a 1 to 4 candle correction. You can see how it's trying to get into the moving average, and then it'll probably turn around and go down once the price crosses these lows. But really, once it crosses this, once it crosses the setup trend line at 33.70, the price should seriously accelerate to the downside. Here's the 1-hour chart. The sequential isn't working out, but it's not going to be very useful. I can tell you right now that this is a price flip, and that's a 1, and that's another 1 to the downside. So that's a 1 to the upside. 2 and 3. There it is. So you had a 13 buy on the aggressive at the low. CMF is not good. The hourly chart is generally useless, but it's in a neutral stance to me. That's about it. The long leverage is rising, so that does open up the probability of prices dropping, just like what happened right here. See how your ratio of long to short was up and the prices dropped. That's happening again, so the prices can drop some more. GBTC is holding at $4, so that's okay. The premium was at 14%. Gold, like I suspected, and this is what I told Tyler, Leah, I wouldn't mess with those 9s. So gold seems to have hit a wall. It's starting to pull back a little bit. It can break out, but I would wait for the 1 to 4 candle correction and then wait for the price to go up and get above the top of the 9 with maybe a green 2 above a green 1 after a price reset. Silver is probably no different. Stock market. This is a big week for the stock. I have no idea what it did. I actually had no idea what day it was today, but now I remember. That is a very nice day. That is a very nice start to the day. We're on a 6 sequentially, even with a combo 13. Let's see if we can get into that 2750 range. We're about to get through the middle of the channel, which is a good sign. And that's pretty much it. We're gonna look at the weekly chart. And I mean, it's only one day into the week and it's only noon. So, and it's great. You know, we're breaking a point. It's this is the problem. The moving averages. Can we cross 2750? Can we get above these moving averages? If we can, I think we're going to new all-time highs. So I am watching very, very carefully. All right, guys, that's it from me. Please, if you want to support this YouTube channel, please check out the affiliate section of tonebase.com. I added the blockchain cruise, which I will be going on. And that's pretty much it. No more exchanges, but you do have TradingView and TorGuard and Bitcoin Live, which is another analysis channel. You can check out my calendar. We will be defaulting to the monthly view, and that's where you can get links to all of the conferences I'm speaking at, and the workshops and the carnivory dinners. You know, there it is. You can go ahead and sign up. Just click on that. And this is the dinner with Jimmy and I on Thursday. All right, that's it. Back to Leah.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Thank you so much, Tone. And Jimmy?
This song is done.
I think so. Bye, Tone. Bye, gentlemen. Bye, everybody.
Bye.